Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Psychology Point. Today we are going to start chapter 6, that is learning, from class 11 psychology, which is very important for the students who are appearing for CBSE term 2 examination. As you all know, the weightage given to this chapter is far more than the other chapter. So let's begin. Before I start, I have a question for you all. You can write in the box, okay? You can write in the comment section as you proceed with the video. See, first of all, I would like to know whether a child, newborn child, can make any type of response. In your previous chapter, you have studied that the newborn child is not as helpless as we think. Okay. So that means, I hope you all must have got my hint. I am referring to the reflexes which are present in the newborn child. That is, he is able to swallow, he is able to suck. Okay, no one is teaching him all this. It is already present in him. Same way, certain reflexes are present with us throughout the life. Isn't it? For example, if something enters in my eyes, so I am bound to blink my eyes. Okay? Or if I am in the kitchen and I had touched something hot, I'm bound to remove my hand from that pan, isn't it? So, this is what I want to tell you, that there are two types of responses. One are reflexive responses, the examples which I had discussed just now. Okay, one are reflexive responses and the other are learned responses. Okay, for reflexive responses, no teaching is required. Whereas for learned responses, learning is required, practice is required, experience is required. This is all we are going to study in this chapter 6, that is learning. Learning in general language means you must be thinking that it is, memorizing something. No. Here in this chapter, it doesn't mean memorizing something. It means learning something new. Okay, then only learning has taken place. Okay, so as we proceed, you would follow. Okay, so basically in this chapter, we are going to focus on learned responses. Okay, so now let me tell you what is learning. Learning is, you will get this definition in your book. Learning is a permanent, relatively permanent change in our behavior, okay, caused due to practice or experience. Okay, so now let me explain you this definition. What is learning? See, it is a relatively permanent change. Okay, relatively permanent change means in relation to something. Supposingly, today you learned something. Okay, today you just started learning to ride a bicycle. So you were moving this way, that way, that way. Okay, then tomorrow you again did. Okay, your performance improved. So that is relatively permanent. And even if for years, and it is a permanent, okay, even for years you had not drive the cycle, okay, but when you will start a little bit here and there, and then you will be able to ride the cycle. Okay, so this change in our behavior, which is relatively permanent, is called learning. Okay, now how it came about? It came due to practice. Okay, in case of cycle and all, it came due to practice. But sometimes it comes through experiences. And experiences also, children, if we talk about experiences, experiences are also, some experiences are single, and some experience, multiple experiences we have with something, then we learn. Okay, a single example of the single experience which teaches you that this is something very hot is touching. Suppose a child is passing through, okay, crawling, and a candle is lighted and it is kept before him. He touches that flame, okay, and he hurts himself. Now, this single experience is teaching him or making him learn not to touch this type of flame next time. And sometime what happen? We learn through repeated experiences. Okay. So this is there. So these are only the features of learning. So let's discuss more on the features of learning. First is, it is a relatively permanent change in our behavior. Okay. Second is, it is produced by any experience or practice. Then third is, it also involves psychological events. Okay. A learning is a psychological process. A series of psychological events are associated with learning. Clear? How? Now, what type of psychological events? There are various steps involved, various events are involved. So, the first is, if you are exposing someone to new thing, you will always take his pre-test. That is, you would start asking him the things he knows. Okay, so that is called pre-test, which are taken. This learning involves, okay, firstly pre-test, then exposure to the new item. Then you are exposing the subject to the new item. Okay, now here the child is also learning to identify. Child or subject is one and the same thing. Now, by this time you all know, when I am speaking the subject, I am speaking about the person on whom the experiment is being conducted. Okay, so here he learns to identify these material as well as is able to recognize the material. So, series of steps are involved in the learning. Okay. Now, next feature of learning we'll see. See, learning is an inferred process. Inferred process. Okay, which is different from performance. I'll explain you how. Different from performance. Let's see how. Okay, see, a teacher in the class has given you to learn the poem. Okay, we call it poem these days. The pronunciation has changed now. Okay, So she has given you poem to learn. Then she asked you to recite. Okay? In front of the whole class, she asked you to recite. Then when you had recited that poem, that has shown your performance. Now, based on this performance, she is able to infer or conclude that the learning has taken place. Okay? This particular girl or this particular boy has learned the poem. Okay? Is it clear to you? So, these were some of the features of learning. Now, when we proceed with the chapter, you have different types of learning. And learning in your chapter is also termed as conditioning. Okay? The simplest kind of learning is called conditioning. So, simplest kind of learning is called conditioning. Now, in this chapter, as we proceed, you will be studying various type of learning or conditioning. Okay? Today in this video, I would be covering at least classical conditioning with you. Okay, so let's begin the next topic, the classical conditioning. So for classical conditioning, I think all of you must have heard the name of Pavlov and his experiment on dog somewhere or the other, even if the psychology subject is new to you. But this famous experiment of Pavlov on his dog is very much famous. Okay, anyway, if you have not, so let's learn it today. That classical conditioning was given forward by a Russian psychologist, that is Ivan Pavlov, by conducting his experiments on dog. Now, before we proceed further, it is very much essential that you should know the definition of classical conditioning. Okay, classical conditioning is the conditioning in which a person learns to associate a stimulus and then anticipate the events. Okay, what is going to happen next, that also he anticipate. This is new for you, so you would follow. Okay, let me write this definition on the board also for you. See, classical conditioning let this be in short, children, my board is very small. Classical conditioning is a process through which one learns to anticipate, to associate a stimulus, associate a stimuli and anticipate events. Okay, you will follow when I explain you the process, how it happens, what is you are going to anticipate in this, and what is that association which you are learning in this. You have in your NCRT a diagram showing the dog in the harness. Okay, so we will see what was done on that dog also. But before that, I would tell you that this classical conditioning or Pavlovian conditioning is talking about two types of responses, that is unconditioned response and conditioned response. Okay, unconditioned response is something which is a natural reaction to something. Okay, like your mother is preparing your favorite food, rajma chawal or Maggi, which is usually of the children. Okay, so here this if you are hungry at that time, or if you happen to smell that food, then what happened, the saliva automatically start coming in your mouth. Okay, you didn't learn, so that salivary reaction is unconditioned response. And conditioned response, now here the Pavlov has tried to create certain association, okay, which you will follow as I further explain you what type, how he had created association with the neutral stimulus. Supposingly a bell rings, okay, so bell rings, nothing happens to us, nothing happened to the dog which the Pavlov has used. Okay, now he has done this pairing several times, bell being a neutral stimulus in the starting. Bell is the neutral stimulus. Okay. Then he gave food. In the experiment, unconditioned stimulus is the food and unconditioned response is salivation. Okay. Then what did Pavlov do? He had made the dog learn to associate it with the neutral stimulus, that was the sound of the bell. Okay, so what he did is he had given him many pairings of this neutral stimulus plus unconditioned stimulus, that is the food, and the saliva was there. Okay, unconditioned response was there. But then after several pairings, now this neutral stimulus became conditioned stimulus, and when bell was rung, then the dog salivated. Before the presentation of the food, the dog salivated. This is what is the conditioned response which Pavlov wanted his dog to learn. Okay, there are many applications in our daily life which we can do for classical conditioning also. Okay, so let's see them also and then we will wind up today's video. Okay, so for application, two examples are given in your book. You will go through them and you will be finding that these we see in our daily life. Okay, a small child, gets afraid when a balloon bursts around his ear. Okay, small child is afraid of the, loud noise, isn't it? So he gets very frightened. Now here, when he happens to see it afterwards also, then he develops the same response. For example, I'll read it from your book and explain you this and then wind up my today's video. See, suppose a small child catches an inflated balloon which burst in his ear, make his burst in his hand, making a loud noise. The child becomes afraid. Now the next time he is made to hold the balloon, it becomes a signal or a cue for noise and elicits fear response. This happens because of contagious presentation of balloon as a conditioned stimulus and loud noise as unconditioned stimulus. Okay. Okay, students, if anything is not clear to you, you can write in the comment section and I'll surely explain you again. Thanks for watching Have a nice weekend. And please, if you like this video, please do share it with others. They will also learn this important chapter, which is important not only for the CBSE students, it's important for all those who are appearing for any competitive exam. Okay, thank you. We will meet again very soon.